Such a handsome crowd. I'm Dana Revia, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Arlington Heights Memorial Library. And on behalf of the Board of the Library Trustees and our colleagues at the library, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our One Book, One Village signature author event for 2023. This is the year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary for One Book, One Village. From our first selection in 2014 with Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger to last year's Clark and Division by Naomi Himahara, we've had a truly diverse set of voices visit Arlington Heights throughout the years. We're thrilled once again to see our community come together, to read, join the conversation, and tonight we'll meet the author. It's so great to be back at the Forest View Auditorium, and we're excited to be live streaming our event for the second year in a row on our library's YouTube channel. We are also pleased to be offering an ASL interpreter for tonight. I'd also like to thank the Friends of the Library for their continued support of the One Book, One Village throughout this past decade. Through the Friends' generosity and continued support that makes this event and evenings such as this possible year after year. Thank you, friends. Throughout the past several months, The Two Lives of Sarah has been the book all Arlington Heights is talking about. For more than 1,700 copies have been checked out so far. Raise your hand if you're one of those. Yay! As this book resonated with our community through book discussions and programs, including a special barbecue party and outreach events throughout the village, it has allowed us to come together and inspire a greater understanding about the book's themes. The Two Lives of Sarah also gave us an opportunity to form new partnerships and strengthen pre-existing ones, including the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault, the Village of Arlington Heights, High School District 214, Wings Program, and the Arlington Heights Park District. You also may have seen our staff at the Arlington Heights Farmers Market, Harmony Fest featuring the Taste of Arlington Heights, or Autumn Harvest, as they spread the word about One Book, One Village. It is our partnerships and our community events that help the library expand our reach within our community and beyond. I would also like to welcome Natalie Moore, who will be joining tonight's conversation. Moore is an award-winning journalist from WBEZ. She has written several books, including the acclaimed book, The South Side, A Portrait of Chicago and American Segregation, for which she received the 2016 Chicago Review of Books Award for nonfiction, and was selected as BuzzFeed's Nonfiction Book of 2016. Based in Chicago, Natalie's reporting tackles topics like race, housing, economic development, food injustice, and violence. And truly, the inspiration behind all these events and experiences is none other than tonight's featured guest, author Catherine Adel West. Catherine Adel West was born and raised in Chicago, where she currently resides. She graduated with both her bachelor's degree and master's of science in journalism from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I got someone along with the crowd. Her work has been published in Black Fox Literary Magazine, 5 to 1, Better Than Starbucks, 805 Lit and Art, Doors Ajar, The Helix Magazine, Lunch Ticket, and Gay Magazine. Author of Saving Ruby King, West was named one of USA's Today's Black Authors You Should Know. The Two Lives of Sarah is her sophomore novel. And in her own words, among the many passions I've cultivating, writing is one which wholly defines me, and the one that challenging the way I process the world and the people within it. We all dismantle our walls in different ways. I use words. Won't you all please join me in welcoming Catherine Adel West.
Everybody. All right.
Happy to be here, happy for you all to be out. But before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to the library and librarians. We are Sarah living in really perilous times, and librarians are heroes and warriors and on the front line. So I just want to give a round of applause for all the hard work that they do. And because everybody has read the book, we are going to have spoilers tonight. And I plan to ask some of the questions that might be burning in your head about Sarah. So we'll talk for about 45 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes for questions. But before we get into the two lives of Sarah, I want to know about the life of Catherine.
Uh-oh, okay.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and who your people are.
Who am I and who are my people? Well, one of my people is there. That's my dad. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Born and raised on the playground, where I spend most of my days. I am a happy graduate of Morgan Park High School, where we both went.
We found out today we went to
Yep,
high school.
MPH Mustangs. Graduated from U of I, and I spent 17 years thinking I was supposed to be like a Newswire editor. I thought that's what I was gonna do, and at about 31, 32, I decided to, start writing again. Short stories, nothing to me, nothing special, but I just always had a passion for writing. One of my grad school colleagues, I was talking to her about a short story, and she said, you should make that into a book. And that book was Saving Ruby King. So I didn't think that I would be here. If you told me 10 years ago that I would be sitting in front of you fine people, I'd be like, nah. People buy your book. Nah. People email you about your book and call you and text you about your book and about Jonas. We'll get into that later. Nah. So I just also want to say thank you. I appreciate the platform with all these book bans. Books like mine are absolutely in danger of getting cut because people don't want to recognize what the true history of this nation is. The good, the bad, and the absolute ugly of it. And I feel one of my goals as a writer is to show all of those parts. In order for us to be able to change and evolve, we need to see ourselves for who we truly are, and one of the ways we do that is through art. And I am happy to be one of those bastions. So that's a little bit about me. And also I like long walks on the beach, Keanu Reeves, I'm an Aries. I really don't like long walks on the beach, but Keanu Reeves I love him. I love him.
I'm so sorry. I'm getting over. 2 days ago, I did not have a voice, so I'm glad that it came back for tonight. Which authors made you fall in love with literature?
First author I fell in love with, even though he was not a good person, was Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens taught me what a true plot twist was. One of the first books I really, really got into was Great Expectations. And when I found out that the convict was Pip's benefactor, the way I was like, I had no clue. And I talked my mom's ear off about it. I talked my dad's ear off about it. I was like, oh my God. And it was like, Pip, I didn't even know. And this is crazy.
How old were you?
I was about 11 when I started reading. But my mom is a retired reading literature English teacher. So it wasn't weird for somebody to be reading Dickens in a house under 17. So of course I'm reading this because my mom is like, read a book. And my dad is like, stop asking me all these questions. So that was one of the authors I first fell in love with. Maya Angelou, of course, Octavia Butler, James Baldwin. A lot of the people that I mentioned in Zora Neale Hurston, a lot of the people I mentioned in Saving Ruby King are writers that I've loved, writers that I've read, writers that if I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to, I would. A lot of contemporary writers that I like, Jesmyn Ward, her book just came out. Go get it if you haven't. Let Us Descend. Colson Whitehead, the Nickel Boys. Bro, the Nickel Boys. Oh my God. The Nickel Boys. Anyway, Colson Whitehead is another author of mine. And when I'm looking for something really funny and light and a little steamy, I get to my rom-coms. Taja McCoy is one of the good ones. Denise Williams is a good one. Cherish Reed. I love reading, you know, those authors as well. So I try to read across the spectrum. Hanya Yanagihara was a big influence on the Two Lives of Sarah because it taught me that I don't have to write a book that has like a happily ever after ending. A lot of people are wrapped up in, you know, HEAs, and I'm just not that writer, I guess. Maybe, you know, like one of my books, I'll eventually have a happily ever after ending, but then I think y'all will be like, this is not a Catherine Adel West book.
What books do you think your books are in conversation with?
I absolutely think that my book is in conversation with The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And though it's not a book, and it's an essay, How It Feels to Be Colored Me by Zora Neale Hurston, I think I wanted to write kind of a female version of it because James Baldwin was talking to all of us, right? But he's doing it from a black male perspective. I wanted to do it from a black female perspective and talk about all the things that affect us. Not just, you know, racism, but the control of our bodies and the control of our minds and our processing of trauma, just coming at it from a black female perspective. And I thought that that was something truly important, and I wanted to kind of have that conversation and that go-between. So The Fire Next Time and How It Feels to Be Colored Me by Zora Neale Hurston.
How did Sarah come to you?
So Saving Ruby King, which was my debut, some of you, how many of you read it? Have some of you read it? Okay, all right. So I won't try to ruin it for those of you who haven't, but go get it.
I was looking up spoilers. I was like, I gotta find out what this book is about. I don't understand. So, yeah.
So Sarah was Lebanon's mom in Saving Ruby King. She's a very mean, bitter, spiteful woman. And when I wrote Sarah, I kind of wondered, well, like what made her that way? And near the end of Saving Ruby King, there's a part where, and it's not a spoiler, she's sitting in a church and she's talking about this time in Memphis and how she worked at a boarding house and how she fell in love with a man named Jonas, but how, you know, Jonas died. And these are some really nice little poetic, I'm like, oh my God, look, I'm just writing this, it's so sweet. Because at this point, Saving Ruby King hadn't been published. I was in the process of writing it, and I sure as hell didn't think that it would ever wind up on bookshelves, but it did. And then my publisher says, so what's your next book? And I'm like, I don't know. So I had to find something, and I decided to write about Sarah. I think Sarah came to me because I needed a reason for Lebanon to be the way he was. But if I have a reason for Lebanon to be the way he was, then why is Sarah the way she is? So then I had to answer that question. And the deeper I got into the character, the more questions about her I wanted to answer. And unsettlingly, the more she kind of reflected me in certain aspects. So then I had to answer some questions and do some digging for myself.
What were some of the questions that you were asking yourself?
I think Sarah's ability to be cruel first but kind later. The way that she uses words as a defense mechanism because so many things happened to her when she was younger, it's kind of like, okay, my first thought is to just cut you at the neck so you won't mess with me no more. Because physically I might not be a match due to the things that happened with my dad, but verbally, if I mess with you, if I say something to you, you ain't getting ready to say nothing back. So one of my favorite parts in the revival is say like when Jonas said that, you know, you snort when you laugh. And Sarah says, your tie is crooked and your pants are too short, I can see your socks. Like, was that really needed? It wasn't. But I'm very much the same way. So if you said something to me that I didn't like, I know y'all looking at the face, be like, oh, but she seems so nice. And I am, but don't cross me. Like, don't. I said it before, I say it again. I'm an Aries, fire sign. We don't play. So I had to think about why I was like that. And sometimes the way that I reacted to people wasn't really justified. So I had to hold myself to account. Just because somebody said something I may not have liked or didn't think before they spoke, doesn't mean I have to verbally garrote them to just kind of feel like I'm protecting myself. I can just be like, I don't like what you said, or what you said offended me. I don't need to talk about your mama, your grandmama. You know he ain't your real daddy. I don't need to do all of that, So I think I had to answer for some attitudes and some actions that weren't quite justified. And I think Sarah helped me come to terms with that and make a path to try to correct it.
We'll talk some more about Sarah, because I don't know if a writer, if you care what the reader thinks, or if you're thinking about the reader as you're writing, or if you're just writing the truth of that character. But Sarah is so full of contradictions, and she makes poor choices, she makes good choices. She also was handed such a horrible deck. How did you negotiate the emotional terrain as you were writing her and thinking about how the audience would receive her?
I don't think I thought about how you guys would receive her.
Because as a writer, I don't think about that either.
Yeah, because right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you're writing. At this point,
Yeah.
you're just writing and you're seeing what's gonna come out, what's gonna work, what's not gonna work. I love my readers, I love y'all, but I don't care about y'all like that. Like, I'm just getting ready to write, and I'm gonna see what comes out, and it really is what it is at that point. And I needed to be realistic in how things happened with Sarah, because you don't go through that much trauma. And then at the end, you're like, sunshine and lollipops and rainbows. It doesn't work like that in a lot of instances. So I think when I'm navigating the emotional terrain, I'm doing it for myself, but I'm doing it to make sure that it's realistic, and I want to hold myself to account and hold the character to account. Because if it's not ringing true to me when I'm writing it, it's not going to ring true to you all when you read it. So.
Why Memphis?
Y'all gonna think there's some deep answer. There's not a deep answer.
Like, your grandparents aren't from Memphis, you didn't take these summer trips to Memphis? I know the answer is no, but.
Everybody wants a deep answer to this question. Once again, when I wrote Saving Ruby King, it wasn't really supposed to get published. I didn't think it was. When I wrote that line about Sarah and going to Memphis and all of that, just Memphis sounded nice. Memphis. I like how that sounds. Literally, that was the only thing that went through my head. I liked how it sounded, and then you think about the civil rights history there, and it just seemed right. I'm like, when I'm writing, I'm like self-involved, thinking I'm writing like, and she went to Memphis, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then the book gets published, and then they're like, well, what do you want to write about? I think I kind of want to write about Sarah. What about that when she went to Memphis? I'm like, I don't know anything about Memphis. I've never been to Memphis. I ain't even been to Tennessee. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So what I planned to do was take a trip to Memphis, right? I'm gonna take a trip, and I'm gonna eat a bunch of food, and maybe meet a cute guy, and that's what I was supposed to do. And then COVID hit. So I couldn't go to Memphis, and I couldn't eat barbecue, and I couldn't meet a cute guy. But you know, Hinge though. Anyway, I had to pivot. What I did was I reached out to the writing community, and writing community is fantastic. Does anybody, are any of these writers, are any of you in Memphis? Do any of you live in Memphis? Do any of you know anybody who lives in Memphis? And a few people did, and they hooked me up with people, so I did Zoom interviews with people. A lot of them, a couple of them grew up during the 60s, because they was born in like the 30s and the 40s, so they could legit tell me what was popping off in Memphis during this time. Then I was reading a bunch of books, academic papers, newspaper articles. I'm like legit looking up old pictures of streets. So when it's the point where Sarah and Jonas are looking for Will, those are real cross streets based off of real pictures that I looked at. I didn't know that I was gonna write about Memphis. I didn't think this book was gonna get published, let alone two. So I just painted myself into a corner and fought like hell to get myself out of that corner. And I think one of the great things about it is that people who live in the South say you did a good job. That's exactly how it was. I felt like, you know, I was there around the table with all of them. And that to me is a testament that I did my homework, because I did not want to misrepresent such a fine and magnificent city.
You have to go visit.
Girl, I want to go visit Makita's Butter Cookies alone is a reason to go visit that place.
At the Civil Rights Museum, which is the Lorraine Motel, around the corner, there's a place called 99-Cent Soul Food.
Chick, are you serious?
And it has sweet potato cornbread. It is so...
Chick, are you serious?
Yeah. We ate so... Yeah, Memphis is great.
I ain't going to be able to fit in this chair.
Yeah.
You said sweet potato cornbread?
I tried to make it at home. It didn't work out. But speaking of food...
Oh, yes.
So are you a culinary master in the kitchen?
No.
But you were just talking about the capon. Anybody who
Now,
makes...
now,
in
listen,
the green room, she told me she makes
I
capon
make capon and dressing
dressing
from scratch. Ask my dad, I do. Culinary master, no. Can I put a meal together? Yes. For any of these single dudes out here, I can cook. But you better cook too, bro, because I'm not getting ready to just cook every single night. I didn't leave my house without knowing how to cook, right? My grandma taught me how to make salmon patties. My mom taught me how to basically do everything I can cook, and I know how to bake. And these were things not because it's like, oh, it's tradition. No, it's survival. I'm in my house by myself. You can't do Uber Eats every day. You bankrupt yourself. But I know how to cook. I know how to follow directions. Now I've learned how to follow directions. If you ask my teachers in school, they'd be like, she's horrible at it. But when it comes to cooking, it's the one time where I have to follow directions. I have to do exactly what's said or else we have a problem. I think that when it comes to Black women in general, our moms and our grandmoms, they're like, you can't leave the house without knowing these basic skills. You know, salt and pepper goes on meat. You don't just put that in the oven and just eat it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just, you know, what do you put? Put a teens. What's a teens? A teens is what I said. A teens is like basically a small amount of seasoning to taste. But just, yeah, exactly, teens. You know, like Salt Bae, you know, when he's like, that's us. Like, we just, you know, we have to do that. So, culinary master, no. Can I read instructions and figure out how to cook? Yes.
But were you testing out those? There are no recipes verbatim. But
salmon patties, yes. Pound cake, yes. Pineapple upside down cake with rum, yes. The rest of them I just looked up online when I was doing research, and then looked up the YouTube videos to make sure when I was describing this stuff, I wasn't sending anybody off, because I knew that people was gonna try some of these recipes.
if you had a bad biscuit recipe.
Well, that wasn't me. That's Sister Rydeen Pulliam. That's Pastor Rydeen Pulliam. She is a pastor at the church my mom goes to. And I asked her how to make biscuits, and she told me how to make biscuits. So that's how I learned. I didn't even learn that from my mom and my grandma. It was one of the pastors that associates with my mom's church. And she taught me how to do biscuits, and I love that woman. I didn't know what butter rolls was until I was doing one of the interviews with one of the older women, I think Miss Era, and she told me about butter rolls. And so then I had to look up what butter rolls are, the different recipes for butter rolls, and then like, you know, I had to put it in a book.
Did you know that you wanted food to be so prominent when you were writing?
No, I think it just came naturally. We're in a boarding house, and I knew that a lot of pivotal scenes needed to take place. So where was it going to take place, and where do we congregate? In the kitchen. So you can't be in the kitchen just standing around. You got to be in the kitchen and you got to cook. So then I found myself researching, and I overindulged to the point where they were making hash browns, and I legit had a whole paragraph on how to clarify butter to make crispy hash browns. My editor saw that and was like, so we don't need that paragraph. And I'm like, but I did all this research. And she was like, no, that's, But, I think because a lot of important scenes needed to happen, they were gonna happen in the kitchen. Some of the most important conversations I've had in my life have been with my mom, have been in the kitchen, have been with my grandma, have been in the kitchen. So I just felt that it was really important to make sure that food and cooking and community was kind of based on that.
Did anyone see the Green Book exhibit at the Holocaust Museum? Yes. So it was here earlier this year. The Green Book was the book that Black families used if they were driving around because they couldn't make stops. And there was a section in the exhibit that talked about women in their boarding houses, their home restaurants, beauty shops, these entrepreneurs, because people couldn't stay at hotels.
Nope.
And as I was reading about Mama Sugar and the Scarlet Poplar, I immediately thought about the Green Book.
And I alluded to the Green Book. In the beginning, one of the professors who was going to Tuskegee opens the Green Book to figure out if he needed to stay at another, bed and breakfast at another boarding house, but it was only a few hour drive. And when he leaves, everybody kind of holds their breath and just let him make it home safe. Because it's that real. And it, for us, remains that real in a lot of instances.
Mama Sugar had a lot of trauma in her life. I don't know if overcome is the word, but she was able to power through. How did you think about the dichotomy of the relationship between Mama Sugar and Sarah?
I think I needed somebody who had been through maybe not the exact same thing, but traumatic things to kind of help Sarah see this is what you could be and this is what you could do, but it's your choice. So I think I wanted Mama Sugar to be, once again, we're kind of going through Dickens. So, you have the ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future. She was Christmas future. And she's showing Sarah, hey, this is what you can do despite your trauma. And despite the fact that things are messy for me now, I'm still able to accomplish these things, not necessarily, I don't want to use the word wallow, but remain stagnant in my trauma. So I'm going to do what I do to push forward as much as I possibly can. So I wanted Mama Sugar to be an example to Sarah about what she can accomplish and who she could be despite all the things that have happened to her.
So what was your Dickens plot twist?
I think my Dickens plot twist was finding out that Lucky was Grandma Sugar's oldest, or it was Mama Sugar's oldest.
That would have been my guess.
Yeah. When everybody finds out, wait, Lucky is what? Oh, no. So I think for me, that was my Dickensian plot twist, having the main antagonist. I don't like saying the word bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
Circumstances. So was Sarah bad? See,
I mean,
you could say that, but I kind of think it's too easy to call somebody a bad guy.
Lucky's actions put so many people in harm.
He did to protect his child, though.
Burning the house to protect his child?
I didn't say it was right. It's vicious.
But how was that? Now we're getting to the spicy part.
Right, I know, right.
So how did you see him burning the house as protecting Diane?
That part wasn't protecting Diane. That part was just plain old vengeance. Sometimes our needs and our wants to protect our family, if maybe we can incite a little bit of mayhem too, do it. I'm one of those people. So if you went for my dad, right, somebody tried to hurt him, I'm going to hurt you. But when you down, I'm going to kick you a couple times too. I don't have to, and I was protecting my father, but I'm going to mess you up a little bit more. Because then you ain't going to try to do again what you did. I told you to get me my money, Amos, and you didn't get me my money. You abandoned me, got a whole new family. I haven't heard from you because you abandoned me, and you left me with this dude who was my father. So yeah, I burned down your house. I don't care about you. You didn't care about me. What I care? I got my girl now, and that's who I'm going to try to keep safe. And if you ain't going to help me by giving me the money that's owed to me, then I'm going to just make you regret it. And that's just the cherry on top.
But then he kept going. Okay, you burned the house, and now you come back.
He came back at the end, because at that point he had nothing to lose, because he lost Diane. All I needed you to do was give me my money, because I needed to help this girl, and I needed her medicine. But now I come back, and it's this nice little party, and you know, my mama's smiling, my stepdaddy's smiling, my brother is there with his child, and I've lost my child. And she was the only thing that I had, the only thing that gave me a semblance of my humanity. And now that's gone. So what I care about now? Nothing.
Why didn't he ever say that the money was for Diane?
It's none of your business. Why I gotta share this with you?
But if he really wanted to help her, and if that was his number one thing, that might have garnered some
sympathy.
I'm not telling you to go, I'm not asking these questions. You can go back into your time machine to change the story.
No, I wouldn't change it because this is the thing. You're speaking from a perspective of something you do. Why didn't you just say this? Why didn't you open your mouth? When you're angry
not just
with
me,
people,
but trying to understand
I think when
the
you're
characters.
Like when you're angry with people, I think with Lucky, I don't think he felt like it was deserved. I don't have to share these parts of my life with you. Not necessarily thinking if I share these parts of my life with you, it might help because you're too bitter and you're too angry. Lucky and Sarah are very, very similar. But Sarah somehow has a little bit of a saving grace with Mama Sugar. Lucky don't have that. So I kind of feel it's one of those things where we can kind of go back and Monday morning quarterback. And once again, I'm not advocating what Lucky did. I'm saying I understood why he did it. That's why I don't like calling people or bad guys. They're an antagonist, right? It's the black to your white, the peanut butter to your jelly, right? It's the, sun to your ocean. You can't have one without the other. You can't have light without dark.
And even understanding that no one person is only the one thing that they are, mm-hmm. It was surprising to see, for me as a reader, that Lucky was this attentive father, or that he cared so much. That to me was another plot twist, not just him being the long lost son, but that he had this other side to him.
I think I needed that, because if not, y'all have just been like, he sucks. But the people who we think absolutely suck, there is some humanity there, however they tend to express it. Lucky just expressed it in his care for Diane. And for every antagonist in my book, with Saving Ruby King, Lebanon was the antagonist. There were reasons as to why they do what they do. I literally want you all to sit and be, sit confused as hell and just be like, but would I do it? But I don't know if I would. But let me see. I don't want people to out and out. I mean, people, readers will out and out hate a character, but there are some who will look at an antagonist and kind of dive deeper. And if any of you have ever seen Black Panther, Eric Killmonger. If y'all say, like, no, he was just a complete bad guy, but was he though? He was abandoned, his uncle killed his father, and in the dichotomy, he represented African Americans where T'Challa represented Africans from Africa. And you see where all the anger and the hurt came up. Do you approve of what Killmonger did? No. But do you understand why he did what he did when he went in that museum and she was like, oh, these artifacts aren't for sale. And he was like, where do you think your ancestors got these? Now say something. See, you can't call a bad guy because there's always, if it's a good bad guy or a good antagonist, there's something driving them. Whether it's loss, whether it's revenge for something that's taken from them, whether they want to remake the world into something new. There's something that's going to drive them. I'm not saying, once again, it's the reason to burn down the Scarlet Poplar with everybody in it. I'm just saying, understand that Lucky has more than one dimension.
Okay, just one little quick Black Panther sidebar. I understood all of Killmonger except that one line where he said, the sun will never set on the Wakanda Empire. And I was like, he is turning into a colonizer because that's what the British said. The sun will never set on the British Empire.
Yeah.
So like you had me like, don't agree, but I understand, but then you turned into a colonizer.
Yeah, I know. But my whole thing with bad guys, it's always a turnabout is fair play. They say it's right. But I'm like, maybe that time is over. Maybe it's time we rule. What's the problem with that? We've been under such subjugation and oppression. Why not flip the script?
Because then you turn into the oppressor.
I know. But if you're a bad guy or if you're an antagonist, you just want what you consider justice. That is what he considered justice. Didn't say it was correct, but that is what he considered to be justice.
Well,
and a lot of times you know.
I mean, these are things to wrestle
with.
And
Yeah, you like, what did old dude say in The Dark Knight? If you live long enough, you turn into the villain.
Yeah. I guess we like the same kind of movie because we're quoting the same verbatim.
Listen. That's how I tend to write. Like a lot of my books, are very cinematic looking because I look at a lot of movies, look at a lot of television, and I read a lot of books. So it's in the blended.
Yeah, the book did feel cinematic. Like it was very. I mean, all good books should have a visual element. You should be able to see it, but. I would say that The Two Lives of Sarah did have that cinematic feel, if that's what you were going for. But then I was just weeping on the couch when Jonas died. I was so mad at myself for Saturday when I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this book this morning. I'm going to get through these last 100 pages. And I was like, why did she do that? I mean, I understand why you did it.
Why I had to. Yeah.
I was weeping. Weeping for Jonas. He was why couldn't he ever kill Amos?
I know.
He was just such a great character, and he was a good guy, and brought something out of Sarah, and was this conduit, I think in a lot of ways where you were showing, HBCUs and literature and the quoting he was that vehicle to have these other historical notes throughout the book. And we know that Sarah's just going to be completely hardened by this. So, speaking of Sarah being hardened, I'm sure some of you might be wondering, why did Sarah leave Sophia and not Lebanon? Or why didn't she just take both of them? Because you think, all right, Sarah's been through all this, but has she learned a lesson? And I get that. I never want happily ever after. But I think as a reader, I want to feel satisfied, even if it's not a happy ending. And I think I just felt so much frustration with Sarah all over again, which is, I think, what you wanted the reader to probably feel, even though you're not thinking about us. But why did you make that choice?
I talked about this earlier when I first got to the library. The reason I did what I did, the reason Sarah took Lebanon, she had to because Saving would be king, but the reason that she took him, she already felt that Lebanon was already tainted. Lebanon is the only tether that she has to that past life. Sophia is unburdened by that. She's untainted by that. Sarah's greatest fear is for somebody to turn into her. But that's what she wound up doing with Lebanon because she couldn't let things go. I think maybe inherently she knew. So that's why she left Sophia in the care of Larry and Cora. Because if anybody was going to be able to take care of her, it was going to be the both of them. And then you still have Mama Sugar and Mr. Van Ellis, and you still have Will. You still have Buster. You even still have Elvin. And that's what she wanted to leave. But Lebanon, she can't let go. Lebanon to her is that, like I said, like that relic that she chooses to take with her. She doesn't want to go and be alone. She needs something. She needs someone. And that sacrifice happens to be Lebanon.
Even though I know that you wrote this afterwards, but do you think in that moment Sarah knew how cruel she would be to Lebanon?
I don't think so. I think in some way, shape, or form, maybe she had the few remnants of belief that she could maybe still be a better person. But the problem is, if you're not going to deal with your trauma, if you're going to bury your trauma, how does that look? The way she chose to bury her trauma, if you've all read Saving, she becomes an alcoholic. So this is the way she chooses to bury her trauma. We done all had good times with alcohol, but we all know we don't make great decisions. That's what happens with Sarah. It's bad decision after bad decision. I think people who read the book and are so frustrated by Sarah, it is my intention to make you feel something, and frustration is one of them. But Sarah is what I call a toxic legend. She's a cautionary tale. What are you holding on to? Is it making you better or is it making you worse? If it's making you worse, let it the hell go. Because you see what happens in this book when you don't. You see what happens in Saving Ruby King when you don't. So you have to kind of figure out what kind of person you want to be. And Sarah made the decisions as to the type of person she wanted to be. And we don't agree with it, but we can change our circumstance. And that's what she's here for. She's here to teach us that.
So is it safe to assume that Sarah never goes back to Memphis and Sophia never knows? Or will there be a trilogy?
I
know your editor asked you that.
Yeah, I'm working on the third book, and I just finished writing a third book for a completely different, something completely different. It's like action, crime thriller with a supernatural twist because I needed to get away from these characters for a little bit. Like I've been writing in some way, shape, or form about these characters since 2012. So I spent about 5 months writing a whole new different book, and prayerfully that gets picked up by a publisher. But now I am getting back into the King universe, and I am working on the third and what I presume to be final book in the trilogy. So.
All right.
And I plan on answering, all of the questions that I get. And I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Are you still working out those answers yourself, or do you know them?
I already know them. I know
I'm not
exactly
ask you what they are
gonna.
because you wouldn't tell us anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm not, because y'all got about the third book.
You gotta buy the book. Okay.
And the other book that'll come out. Like, I just want y'all to buy my books.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel that I'll answer the majority of the questions that I get asked, and it's also going, you know, to answer things about Ruby, and so hopefully you guys will like it.
Well, on that note, we will turn it over to the audience. There are there are 2 librarians, staffers with mics, and wait till they come to you. And we don't have a lot of time, so try to make it please make it a question. Yeah.
Oh, we have a taker by you, Karen.
I'm dying to know how you chose the name Lebanon.
Oh, how did I choose the name Lebanon?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I wish I had a deep answer. My answer literally is what sounds kick-ass? The name Lebanon King sounds kick-ass. I think for me, also it's biblically based. So I grew up in the Black church, and there are mentions of the place of Lebanon in the church. So I just was thinking about it one day, and I thought Lebanon was a really cool name, and then it's like Lebanon King. All right, sounds good to me. So it was just something that was biblically based, sounded really nice, and I also needed something that sounded strong, but with kind of an underlying sinister nature. So kind of like Lebanon, not talking about the place, so don't y'all call me, text me, start talking, I said something I didn't say. But it just sounded like really sinister. It sounded like a really good antagonist name. So I just came up with Lebanon King when I was flossing, and I kind of almost, I was flossing, and I thought about it, and I went too far into I was almost late for work. But thank you for helping me relive that small trauma. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. I'm kidding.
Thank you. Now that we know a little bit about your writing process, which is flossing, what is your writing process? I've read, and heard some authors say they devote this block of time per day or a certain number of pages per day, or how do you approach writing?
Thank you very much. Chaotic as hell. It depends. Every book is different. Saving Ruby King, I wrote a lot during breaks at work, odd weekends. That's why it took me so long. The 2 Lives of Sarah, I was very much regimented. I was on deadline. So this was during COVID, and this was before I became a full-time writer. So I had to be at my job I had to log in by 5 in the morning. So I worked from 5 in the morning to 1:30. From 2:30 until about 5:30, I wrote, period, point blank, didn't matter, 6 to 7 days a week. With my 3rd book, The Gospels of Jessa Crane, and when I was writing The 2 Lives of Sarah, I also was downstairs in my living room, and I had a desk, and I would type literally like it's like another job, no problem, da-da-da-da-da. With the 3rd book that I just finished, The Gospels of Jessa, I was in my bedroom. I was just in my bedroom, just kicking it in the dark, and I just wrote the book. So I have a different process depending on each book. They're all like, no 2 kids are the same. I don't seem to create any 2 books the same, it seems, at this point. But, ask me in 10 years, and maybe then I'll have more of I write 4,000 words, a day, and then Keanu comes and gives me coffee. I don't.
Characters also had humor. What you said a few minutes ago surprised me, that Sarah can be a cautionary tale. And I sort of lost. What I'm trying to say is, I know that I learned a lot from what she said, and some words in there, I know you wrote in a sentence that Sarah says, secrets are not good to be kept. And yet, here she was keeping the secrets.
Yes, ma'am. So I think maybe you're asking me kind of why Sarah would say secrets aren't good, but yet and still keep secrets. Processed sugar isn't good, but I eat the hell out of a cupcake. Right? People will always talk about the things that they're not going to do. It's human nature. We're always good at giving advice, and we're terrible at taking our own advice. So I feel like that's the issue with Sarah.
Hi, this is Saket, and
Hello.
I'm from India, and I recently moved to Chicago from Dallas 1 month ago, and I came across your book in the Arlington Heights Library. I just want to say that I'm really impressed by the writing, and someone who's not aware of the history of America, I could not find any disconnect while reading the book at all, and I could really find a lot of amazing things while reading the book. I have 2 questions to ask. So first question, when you chose about the profession of the characters, like Jones being the teacher and everybody else, what was your thought behind it? And second question, like first, I mean more like a professional question. So for someone who would like to begin their career in writing, what would be the initial steps you would recommend or want to take?
Okay. So why did I choose the professions for the characters in the book that I chose? And a couple of tips on becoming a professional writer. All right, let me try to make this quick. I felt one of the best ways I could introduce African American literature, music, art, writing was to make Jonas a teacher. The way that I decided to do that was to pretty much make him an English teacher. So when he's talking about different literature, it's not coming out of the blue. Jonas isn't an engineer and then just being like, and How It Feels to Be Colored Me by Zora Neale Hurston. Like, I needed a plausible conduit to make, Jonas, who he is, and also to get across a lot of the history and a lot of the culture of African Americans. And then in terms of becoming a professional writer, it's like a lot of steps. But what I will say is when you're writing your story, just write it, because nobody is going to be able to tell a story the way you're going to be able to tell your story. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Perfect it as much as you can before you send it off to a literary agent, and become friends with rejection, even though it sucks. But when you find that yes, it's one of the most, I don't know of a drug that can touch it. So just stick with what it is you want to do, but be pragmatic in it. I decided to become a full-time writer, but I just didn't decide to just do this. This isn't rent. I'm not living a bohemian lifestyle. I saved my money so I could go ahead and do this full-time. So be passionate, be pragmatic, and persevere.
I'd like to add one thing, Tina. Chicago has a really wonderful writing community, and I would recommend maybe taking a class, not at a university, but Story Studio Chicago has a number of classes, like how to finish your first novel, different types of writing, and then you're workshopping, and then you're in community with writers. So I think community is important also. So that's one example of Story Studio Chicago. The artistic director is Rebecca Mackay, who we were talking about.
Can I ask a question? I love the boarding house characters. The way you got people in and out and told histories and trying to figure out who are you referring to without saying their name was great. But did Mama Sugar ever meet Diane?
Mama Sugar didn't meet Diane, but she knew who Diane was. In the revival scene, when she's with Miss Mavis, she looks across and she sees Diane and has a physical reaction. So that is the reader. I was trying to let you know as the reader, she knows who Diane is, but she knows that there's that barrier there, and she can't go over and be like, hi, I'm your grandma, which is why she has the reaction that she has, because there's that break with Lucky, with Lennox, that she can't bridge that divide. So she knows who Diane is. She just can't approach Diane, which is equally heartbreaking. I just love happy books.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you so very much for your excellent writing, your excellent work. It was a really, really outstanding for me and a pleasure to absorb myself. And I have to thank my wife because she introduced me to your work and your writing. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. And thank wifey. Appreciate you.
She's here. The question I have for you is, why did you choose Bronzeville as opposed to maybe the Chicago's West Side, where Sarah was from, based on the time frame, and we're talking about the 60s. I loved how you worked in the original Mayor Daley, old Mayor Daley, but I was just curious as to why you chose or selected Bronzeville as a neighborhood where Sarah came from, as opposed to the West Side, which has a lot more historic stories and background related to it.
Now, you know you have two Southsiders on stage
And
right
you gonna
now.
ask me why I
And you
decided.
said the West Side has more
So the
history
South
and
Side don't
stories.
have, let me talk to you about Bronzeville, bruh. No. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I was just wondering, because the West Side has a lot of history involved with it. And you mentioned the old man Mayor Daley, which is why the West Side is the way that it is.
Right, absolutely. I think for me, because I am a South Sider, I just mentioned, I just had Sarah come from Bronzeville. Also, I had already said that in Saving Ruby King, so I couldn't say Bronzeville, then say West Side. My last name is West, so I ain't got nothing wrong with the West Side, baby. West Side, but
I got you.
I had to. Oh, I wonder if she said West. You can't say West Side. Yeah, West Side. But seriously, I just wanted to somehow mention Chicago real quick because I know I wasn't going to have many opportunities. So I just happened to mention Bronzeville because I had to let kind of people know who hadn't read Saving Ruby King low key where she was from. So it wasn't it wasn't a disclusion, like an intentional disclusion of the West Side and, history. I mean, if that's the case, then Saving Ruby King was going to be like 600 pages if I got into everything about the West Side, South Side, North Side, what Daley did, what he did, so I had to choose, and I chose the South Side. No, thank you.
We have time for one last question. We have a hand over there.
I'm sorry that you're going to conclude with one book because I think you left us set up for two communities to follow. So I'm hoping you're not going to ignore one of those two communities as you go forward.
Now, did I didn't say I was. Now,
You did not
the
say-
book,
you did
the
not
book,
disclose
the book might
anything.
take place in both. now.
But I thought you could do two more. One there.
The book, the third book in the series, which I think it'll be the final book, but I have a feeling that people be like, but what about this? And like, what about that? And I'm like, guys, I just want to extract myself. But I think that when it comes to Chicago and Memphis with this third book, I do want to give everybody the closure they deserve. But I still feel like y'all gonna be in my DMs and my emails anyway. But I'm going to try to give you all the ending that I want, and hopefully it's the ending that you all want too.
But it won't be happy.
I didn't say that.
But you're not a happy ending writer.
Who said? I can be anything.
You said that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I
said
did.
that. You said
I
that.
did say that. But,
Yeah.
But see, this is what you get when you have a journalist, because they remember the stuff you be saying. Be like, no, you said. I'm like, see, lawyer, just, oh, Jesus, journalist, just. I got 2 degrees in it, and I'm sitting up here like, why are you the way you are? And then I'm like, that's why I am the way I am. I got you. But honestly, I think this book might end on a more positive and upbeat note than you all might think, because of the way that I want to end this and the way that I need to end this for you guys. I think you guys will be happy, and I think you guys might be like, oh, all right, okay, I cried in the middle like a baby, but not at the end, okay. So hopefully it's something that you all will love.
Thank you. This has been such a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for both of you and for this book, for being here in person tonight. Catherine, your time, your talent, your generosity has really made this such an incredible event and experience for the Arlington Heights community. Thank you. And thank you, Natalie, for facilitating tonight's thoughtful conversation, and to Olivia Ginn for your wonderful ASL interpretation. And thank you all for everyone for being here tonight, supporting the idea of building community through shared reading experiences. And thank you once again to the Friends of the Library, to the Forest View Educational Center for having us back, and to the bookstall for offering Catherine's book for sale. Catherine, do you have any last parting words?
Thank you all so much for coming. I want to thank Arlington Library, the Arlington Book community. You all have done such a fantastic job. All of the programs and events leading up to this, I'm absolutely tickled pink. I'm humbled. I'm grateful. Just thank you all for inviting me here. It was a pleasure. And I really just can't thank you enough for everything that went in every single event. Y'all made a dry rub. Like, what? Like, I can't thank you all enough. And yeah, just thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure was ours. Okay. Just some quick instructions. If you're staying for the book.
Oh, thank you to Natalie. Thank you so much. This was such a good time.
Perfect sparring partners, yeah.
Yes.
Some quick instructions, like I said, please stay seated in the auditorium for a few minutes if you're staying for the book signing. Catherine's going to take a quick break, and then after the theater empties, we'll direct you to the book signing line. So thanks again for all coming tonight.